Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of In-Depth Guides. Yeah, that's just what I'm going to call it. I made this little disclaimer thing last time. I'm not going to actually go through it this time, which is kind of a waste of time, but just brief stuff that you guys can pause the video and check out if you want. Today, I'm going to be focusing on Seismunch. So, Seismunch is a melee earth Temtem. It's one of the starters. I'm sure you all know it. It shares this typing with Osekai. So I'll try and focus a little bit on what makes Seismunch and Osekai a little bit different. Or at least what makes Seismunch unique, because we haven't gotten to Osekai, and we probably won't for a while. So with the melee earth type, you have quite a few weaknesses and just as many resistances. But with this many weaknesses, it's not really a great defensive type, especially against common types such as water and I guess Digi. If we look at the stats, that kind of is just another reason is Seismunch is not a Tem that you really want to be bulky. It's more of a fast, offensive, kill stuff with the before it dies sort of thing, with this high of speed and attack. It's got decent HP, so there is a build I'll go through a bit later where it at least has some HP invests. The stamina is actually really solid compared to most Tems. Special defense is awful and defense mediocre. And obviously, it's a physical attacker. You don't want to use the special attacks that Seismunch has. Now we'll go through Seismunch's traits. He's got two unique traits. The first of which, and the most common and useful one, is Earthbound. It's pretty simple. Earthbound gives the holder +1 defense whenever they use an Earth technique. So the main Earth technique we're going to see is Seismunch's Wreck, but we'll go through that in a bit. Self-Esteem is the other trait, where it essentially wipes any negative status effect whenever Seismunch gets a knockout. But it's very situational. Seismunch is normally going before its opponents, so if it gets a kill and then gets a status applied afterward, it doesn't clear. Plus, most of these statuses aren't worth clearing anyways, because they would end up just ending in a turn or two. The only one it's possibly useful for is Doom, and there is a little niche scenario with Hopeless Tonic I'll go through later as well. But normally you're going to want Earthbound every time. Like if you're just wondering, oh, I want to play Seismunch, but what trait should I go? Earthbound, 100%. Let's go through some of his techniques. Kick, just a story move, don't use it. Martial Strike actually got a buff to be priority after this last patch. But honestly, it's weak and Seismunch has better options. I would not normally run this move. Hail Strike, story move, don't run it. Sand Splatter, story move, don't run it. Show Off. So Seismunch actually gets 3 moves that are very similar in what they want to do. One of them is Show Off, another one is Heat Up, and the third one is Hook. But each does it a little differently. So Show Off increases attack by 2 stages and has a synergy with other melee types that gives Invigorize for 3 turns. Seismunch already likes to be next to melees because it's also the synergy for Seismunch's Wreck. So it can be a really good move if you want the extra stamina sustain. However, it only gives 2 stages of attack up. Heat Up gives 3 at a higher stamina cost and no Invigorized. So if you just want to deal more upfront damage or you want to get the bonus when there's not a melee on the field next to you, this will be your better choice. And I think in general, Heat Up is going to be your best option. Hook used to have a niche and actually used to be the best option back when Slingshot gave speed, but it does not anymore. So now it's kind of just Show Off, but it's also a prio move where you can do chip damage if you want. I would not recommend Hook anymore because Show Off or Heat Up are going to be your better options. Uppercut. This is just your standard 80 base power move, normal prio, reasonable stamina costs, just to do some damage. Intimidation is very niche. It gives you a turn of evasion, but it's 2 hold, and most of the time Seismunch either wants to leave the board or just finish off something low after it wrecks, so you're not going to want to click this very often. But it is the option. The option is there because you could wreck, intimidation will be off of hold, then you could use this to survive an extra turn to get the hold off of wreck again, and you could click it. So it is an option, but I don't think it's a very common one. Perfect Jab is an awesome move, but it's more of a move for supports. Seismunch typically wants to be the one doing the damage, not the one helping another Tem do the damage. So I would not typically recommend Perfect Jab. Heat Up we already talked about. Inner Spirit's a special move. I would not run it. Footwork, it raises speed, it looks tempting. It's a bad move, don't run it. Seismunch's Wreck. This is Seismunch's signature move. So it's a spread move that does 105 damage. It has a synergy with melees to get priority and increase its damage to 120. So it's actually a crazy good move. And it's basically what your entire game plan with Seismunch revolves around, is to get a damage boost with Heat Up or Show Off, and then click Wreck. It's pretty simple, but there are a lot of Tems that resist the Earth type, so you have to be careful about what your opponent can swap in. Also, it's an extremely high stamina cost, so if you don't have the Invigorize from Show Off, you have to be careful of when you're clicking it, because you could end up with an OX, overexertion. Helicopter Kick is a really nice spread move on no hold. Wrenching Massage it looks tempting, high damage, synergy for even more damage, but it's low priority, and it costs a lot of stamina. Seismunch wants to be faster, so this is not a move I'd recommend. Its technique courses. Stonewall has very, very niche use on. You're playing Seismunch to deal damage. I would not run this move. Quicksand also, it's kind of a goofy support move. I haven't seen. There's better users for it. Seismunch is not one of them. 5 PPH is it's a Doom move meant more for stall teams. Seismunch doesn't really slot on them. By breeding, so egg moves. Dimmock. Dimmock is a really good 4th slot option. I'll discuss it a bit later, but it can kind of go in place of either Uppercut or Helicopter Kick, because it gives priority and it deals 100 flat damage, and it's a reasonable stamina cost. So it's worth considering. Earthwave is just Seismunch's Wreck, but it's slow and on an extra hold. Cannot recommend using this move. Hook, I already kind of touched on briefly. It basically does the same thing as Show Off. It's just, if you really want speed and chip at the cost of stamina and a possible Invigorize, you could run it, but I would not recommend it. So that's kind of an overview of Seismunch as a whole. Now I'll go through some builds with him. So there's kind of 2 main builds, and then these 2 are more like really niche memes that I'll just touch on really quick at the end. So here's your Glass Cannon Seismunch build. I can't say I've played this before, so I could be wrong in it, but I feel like you want enough speed to outspeed Hedgen. Like, Seismunch is very fast, and with this speed breakpoint, it can actually outspeed a Hedgen with Seismunch's Wreck, which I think is a really important breakpoint to hit. This stamina breakpoint, 74, allows you to heat up Seismunch Wreck and then click Helicopter Kick afterwards, which is the more expensive move of uppercuts. You have a 3-turn rotation, and if you wanted to take a big OX at the end to wreck a second time, you could. The attack, it was HP and defense were just filled because the speed and the stamina were the main breakpoints. But I mean, you basically want as much damage as possible because you're going to heat up, raise your attack, you're going to outspeed everything, and you're going to get a Seismunch Wreck off. And you want it to kill because you don't want your opponents to get hits off on you because you're very squishy defensively. And if they survive, there's a good chance that you will die. This build is more of a bulkier build. I know I said you didn't want to invest bulk in Seismunch, but that's not entirely true. It's just that his stats defensively are bad and his defensive typing is bad. However, if you do have some sort of bulk that you can take a hit or two, it's a lot easier to get your offensive, like, attack boost move off before you get the Seismunch Wreck. which can be really important. So the idea with this build is the HP and special defense investment allow you to take an aquatic whirlwind from a hydrologist max special attack Ukama. Ukama is really common in the meta. I think it's a good breakpoint to hit. Plus, it kind of balances out the special defense and defense, and gives you a lot of defensive power to take even neutral hits. It's probably a 3 KO for most neutral hits, which I think can be a really nice boost. The speed break points to hit 221, which is once again to outspeed max speed Ukama with using normal prio if Seismunch is using priority, which would be Seismunch Rec. So once again, kind of important breakpoint. If you need to kill something before the Ukama gets like a water cannon or a tsunami off, you'd be able to outspeed it. The attack, defense, and stamina were just fill. So nothing special there. I didn't invest any in stamina because with this build, I think it's better to go show off. So typically, if you're going to be running a bulkier Seismunch, I would recommend running it with Tutsu. Tutsu has the ability Tag Team, which reduces damage of Tems of the same type by like 15%. So that increases Seismunch's bulk even more. Tutsu also is a melee type, so it gives synergy for Rec, and more important, well, show off. It's probably not more important than Rec synergy, but by getting the Invigorized here, you would be able to probably even calc for a 4-turn rotation, but it allows you to save stamina TVs if you want. You could still just run this typical move set as well, and that would be fine. The reason I didn't include a 4th move is because I did want to touch on once again that Dim Mak is a fine move for the 4th slot, or even Intimidation. You probably don't want Intimidation on the slower set. You could run it on the faster set, but like I said, it's still kind of niche. Other than that, I told you I was going to mention Self-Esteem with Hopeless Tonic. So this, I haven't seen this viable used much. If anyone knows if you don't know what Hopeless Tonic does, I don't know why basically, if Seismunch is the last one on the field, it gets all of its HP, all of its stamina, and all of its status conditions removed, but then it gets doomed. But what Seismunch can do with this is if it gets a kill at that point, it gets it removed. So the only time it would be useful is if Seismunch is in a 1v2 or more situation, Seismunch gets a kill and needed the HP or stamina to continue fighting. So I cannot recommend it, but the option is there if you want to try something a little bit different. I didn't put a spread in here because it's going to be the same as either of these spreads, kind of your choice. Lastly, I have this complete meme Seismunch build. I just wanted to cover it just for fun, but let me be clear. Do not run this. Essentially, Stand Splatter is the only 0-hold Earth move that Seismunch has, and it can get Earthbound bonus from. Also, Stonewall actually does proc Earthbound as well, so Seismunch can be a really bad defensive buffer. But the option is technically there. 5 PPH is to make use of the Doom, and Dim Mak is just for true damage. I just threw a random build down here. But yeah, don't run it. I just thought it was fun. It is worth mentioning, though, that Reactive Vial could be used in place of Double Screen on the bulkier Seismunch build. There aren't a whole lot of... Like, Aquatic Whirlwind is the strongest water move I could think of that would get you in one hit and that you'll actually run into. But there's other stuff like a Volphy Plague. I believe if you get hit with a Volphy Plague with Reactive Vial, you could actually take a second one and still be alive. However, the chances are that it would Dust Vortex you on the second turn, but no Volphy wants to take a +2 uppercut. And while I'm touching on Volphy, the difference between uppercut and helicopter kick is being able to hit Volphy. Volphy is really common in the current meta. It has Team Elusive, which makes spread moves not able to hit it, so helicopter kick cannot be used against Volphy. Neither can Seismunch's Wreck. So uppercut is your only option to hit Volphy. So while you could run like helicopter kick and Dim Mak, you would be unable to hit Volphy completely, besides like Dim Mak, but that's kind of rough. So I would recommend these three moves, or kind of just one of these. Honestly, I'm just gonna delete these. I shouldn't have had them here in the first place. um, yeah, so these two. I mentioned Tutsu as a good partner for Seismunch. Another good one is Moala. Moala has Hypnotist, so it can make your opponents fall, or make everyone on the field fall asleep. You could swap out this gear for energy drink so that you can stay awake during the Hypnotist. Otherwise, you can always throw a Wake Up on Moala and hit your own Seismunch to wake it up for like 2 damage. And then still get the heat up off while your opponents are sleeping. It's a really good strategy. And since he's a melee type, it also gives you Rex synergy the next turn. Golzy is also another good partner for Seismunch. Gialis, both of them kind of for the same reason, that they can hit melee's weaknesses of mental. Golzy can also hit digital. And they still give Rex synergy. Normally when you're running Seismunch, you want at least 2 other melees on the team and or Mimit. Because you can get Mimit to... If you Mimit your own Seismunch, then your opponent has 2 big threats to deal with, and it's a common thing that's happened in the past. As for bad matchups or like things you want to focus on banning if you're running Seismunch, water types are really bad. Oshiara and Ukama are very fast and will outspeed you with priority. Even a max speed Seismunch gets outsped by priority from either of them if they're max speed. Digi-aggro teams, digital teams for the most part, can outspeed and kill Seismunch even before it gets its holds off on Seismunch Rec or an offensive buff off with heat up or show off. So those are things to be wary of. So if you are running Seismunch, you'll want to run some counters to those. Electrics counter both, so Seismunch pairs well with electric types. That's why Golzy is one of the better pairs for it. That was a lot of information. I hope I covered most of it and did Seismunch justice. Thank you all for watching, but that's going to be all for this video. I will see you all in the next one.